Hello, everyone, and welcome and thank you for joining us today for our 2019 Ask the Experts Summit webinar series. My name is Joe Clower, and I am part of the member experience team here at the Exit Planning Institute. And I am joined today by our presenter, Kyle Danner, with Kyle Danner Solutions for Family Businesses and their advisors. Kyle will be talking today on the topic, understanding conflict in the family business. But before I turn the mic over to Kyle, there's a few notes I wanted to go over with you all. So this series, the Ask the Experts Summit webinar series, was created to give an opportunity for our sponsors and speakers of our Exit Planning Summit to come and talk about who they are and what they do. I'd like to take this chance to thank Kyle and his team for being a sponsor and being a big part of our community. We are very excited for the summit this year and hope that everyone on this call can attend. A little bit of information about the summit is it's being held in San Antonio, Texas from September 23rd through the 25th. And for more information, you can go to exitplanningsummit.com or you could reach out to me or my colleague, Drew English, here at EPI. So the summit is the Super Bowl for exit planning advisors and contains the best content taught by top experts in the marketplace. It brings together 200 of the top CEPAs combined with leading advisors, thought leaders, and partners within our exit planning space. We are big fans of this event, and we hope you can all join us in San Antonio. So on another note, this webinar is being recorded, and I will send it over to all of the attendees after this webinar concludes. So please look for the email after this call. Questions and comments are very encouraged. So please see the question box in the drop-down menu of the GoToWebinar panel. And please type in any comments, feedback, questions you have, and I will make sure to facilitate those over to Kyle. So speaking of Kyle, he is the founder and CEO of Kyle Danner Solutions for Family Businesses and their advisors. Whether you are a family business owner or a certified exit planning advisor with family business clients, Kyle Danner knows you want to position the business for the future and success. However, in order to achieve that, you can't just focus on the family business, you must focus on the family too. And this is why Kyle started his business. Not only is he a CEPA, a certified exit planning advisor, but he's been part of every aspect of a family business. He grew up in a family business, worked in a family business, and owned a family business. He also knows what it's like to leave the family business and start a new chapter in his life. So with that, I will go ahead and turn the presentation over to Kyle. Kyle, the stage is yours.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Joe. And everyone, thanks for dialing in today. I always like to have a little bit of fun with heavy topics. So today's topic, why we can't have nice things, navigating conflict in the family business. And so my goal today is to share a little bit about my story, and Joe really kind of already hit the highlights of it. I also want to talk about how I help family businesses and how I help advisors like those who are listening in on today. And then I also want to give you a little bit of a preview of a breakout session later on this year at the Exit Planning Summit in San Antonio, Texas. Now I'm going to share a lot of information in a short amount of time. But my promise to those listening in is that you'll walk away with at least 2 strategies you can use with your clients. And of course, at the breakout session at the summit, I'll be sharing a lot more. But Joe kind of hit on the highlights of my story is that, I know family business. Family business is something that's very personal to me. I started working in the family business when I was 4 years old. My dad had a delivery service. So as a little kid, I'd sit next to him as he made his pickups and his deliveries. And he ran that business out of the spare bedroom next to mine in the house we grew up in. So starting pretty much from an early age, family and business were one and the same for me. I joined full time after graduating college. My intent at the time was to stay 1 year, but 1 year turned into 17 years. And during that time, my brother, sister, and I grew the business to be the 5th largest printing company in our hometown of Kansas City, Missouri. And the position I held that I grew in the business actually outgrew me. And I was really no longer a fit for it. And it didn't make sense for us to create another space in the business. Didn't make sense to, hire somebody else or for me to get the skills. What really made the best sense and the most sense was for me to leave the family business. So I sold my interest to my sister and I left. And in my next chapter of life, I went back to school for a master's in counseling. And because like so many people listening in on today, we like to help people. We like to help them with estate planning. We like to help them with their consulting, everything we can about their business. Well, I wanted to help people this way. And what I missed though, as I started doing counseling, is I missed the bigger problems of business, kind of those really multifaceted, multi-part things. And so for the last few years, I have been advising family businesses, small businesses, and advisors on exit planning or succession planning or transition planning. And my particular focus is around the family side of things, kind of those stickier, those more emotional issues. So I want to share with you a couple ways in which I help folks. I help online. So I write weekly articles about family business. And many of those are about the stickier side, the more emotional things, the things that you all see as advisors that kind of keep getting in your way. And in all of the articles, I strive to offer a strategy, a tactic, or a tip, something that you can use to really help your clients or other members of the family. And then you can sign up to receive those weekly or monthly at kyledanner.com/blog. The other thing that I'm really excited about, for those maybe who were at last year's conference, I was the guy with all the little elephants all over the place. So I have taken an ebook that I've written, Is There an Elephant in the Family Business? And I've now turned it to an online course. So I'm really excited. This just recently launched, and there'll be a marketing campaign rolled out, but you all are the first ones to get to see what this looks like. And it's really designed to help the individual in the family who is really struggling with how to talk about the issue that no one wants to, but they know everyone needs to, so the family and business can move forward. And then the other thing I'm really excited about is later on this summer is I'll be publishing kind of my first book. It's a small book, but hey, it's my first, about the advisor's guide to successful family business engagements. And in this, I will talk about some of the common mistakes advisors make, and I raise my hand, I include myself in that, where to begin with those challenging family business clients, how to start the conversation with your clients, techniques to keep the client on track, and there's just a lot more packed into it. So I'll be passing out free copies to everyone who attends the breakout session, and I also have a booth there, so if you miss the breakout session, stop by, I'll be happy to chat with you and give you a copy of the book. Now that's how I help online. How I help in person is by helping family businesses implement EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's based on Gino Wickman's book, Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business. And EOS is a complete proven system that helps entrepreneurs and their leadership team and their family kind of get on the same page of where they're going and how they'll get there in terms of their vision, also to help them become more disciplined and accountable and executing really well to achieve every part of that vision. And then to help them, and that includes not just the leadership team, which may or may not include the family, but the family as well, to become more healthy, functional, cohesive. Now, if you're unfamiliar with EOS and you'd like to learn more, or if you want to know how I can be of help to you, my contact information is at the end of this presentation. I find a lot of times I do my consulting and my support via email or phone calls with a lot of advisors. So as I mentioned, I want to give you a preview of what I'll be sharing at the breakout session of this year's summit. So today I'm going to cover 3 conflicts that are common in the family business, especially when it's considering exit or transition, 4 reasons for those conflicts or why those conflicts flare up, and then some strategies that you can use working with your clients. Now, I want to be really clear about the assumption that I'm making in offering this, because what I'm sharing today is I'm assuming that you as the advisor, that you don't want to be in the middle of this. That means you don't want to be the one to lead a family meeting or a family retreat or some big family conversation. And you know what? That's okay. Rather, you just want to do your estate plan, you want to write the buy-sell agreement, or complete the strategic consulting you offer. Instead, what I'm sharing is for those times when you're working maybe with a business owner, or maybe you're talking to a family member, and they share some of the drama that's going on. And so this is about helping you understand what drives some of these conflicts and some of the strategies you can use with your client or suggest that your client can use that might get things unstuck. I'm a huge believer that usually one person can make a small change that has a big impact, because you don't always need that big intervention that involves the entire family. Instead, a really strategically placed or smart question or two can help the owner or family member think about the situation differently, or maybe a little bit helpful advice is just enough for them to make some progress. So diving into the conflicts, the first one is who's in charge. Now, just a quick side note, there are of course a lot more conflicts than just these three I'm sharing with you today, but these are the ones you typically encounter when working on exit plans for a family business. And this one, who's in charge? You may think it's the business owner you're sitting across from the table, and they may insist that's the case, but don't overlook the influence that others play, like the business owner's spouse. If you recall from the state of ownership rating surveys, that often the spouse is the first or second most trusted advisor next to the CPA. And often the spouse is assumed to be the keeper of the family. So any course of action you offer which affects the family will need their approval, even if they're not sitting at the table or whatever the owner may tell you. So what's the takeaway from this? Ask the business owner who else should be at the table. They may hesitate, but position it as having everyone at the table can be more efficient. It saves them back and forth and everyone else's time. Plus, they get help and input on making those big decisions. Plus, it keeps you out of having to do the bad cop, good cop play. Next comment, or the next conflict, is it's not fair. And fairness is one of those issues that often lies just underneath the surface, where everyone will say everything is fine. And feelings around fairness don't really come to light until things start getting real. That is when you start talking numbers like money, shares in the business, percentage of ownership, or control. And because of this, because everyone's been fine, and I'm putting fine in big, huge air quotes with whatever's being discussed, parents and loved ones and advisors are kind of caught off guard because everyone starts to see the impact. This came to a head recently when I was working with a sibling team of 3 brothers. And throughout the history of the business, they've been working together for well over 10 or 15 years. Everybody had always said everything was fair, everything was equal. Even how they, distributed salary and profits and that sort of thing, even though one brother carried the majority of ownership and the majority of exposure, the other brother had, minority ownership, and the third brother had no ownership whatsoever. Everything was fine until an owner came coming with a viable offer, and then all of a sudden everything kind of blew up. So my job in working with one of the family members was to help navigate the discussion around fairness, because the truth is things were never really fair to begin with. They're not fair when one person carries greater exposure than anyone else, and when one person really isn't on the hook if the business fails. So we had to go about working to reset the relationships and define expectations about fairness. And the big takeaway from this is to always be transparent, especially when making decisions about ownership and control and decision making, is to share the process first. Then the third conflict that often happens is the wrong person, the wrong seat. That is, a family member is given a job they don't understand, they don't want, and they can't do. Now, I see this frequently in family business. And I hear a lot of judgment that's a lot of times directed towards the individual, the wrong person, the wrong seat. So the takeaway here for the advisor is I really strongly encourage you to check your assumptions and your biases, because that individual may have been asked to join the business to help out in a time of need or time of crisis. They jumped in to help out the family, and so they had to take a job they weren't suited for. But then that temporary position became permanent. Or there may be tremendous pressure to stay in the business, even if everyone knows leaving would be a better option. Or leaving may not be the answer. They may be the right person, but in the wrong seat. That another position would be a better fit, but changing the organizational chart would create a lot of disruption. And the thing that I've always discovered in this situation is it's not just one person, but really several changes need to be made, that there are a lot of wrong people in the wrong seats. So those are the three conflicts. Let's get into why this kind of blows up or why these things happen. So the four reasons I have here are fear, confusion, pain, and identity. All are deeply rooted, all are wrapped up in one another, making our jobs as advisors really, really difficult. So first, fear. Business owners and their families are afraid to talk about it. They're afraid they don't know. They don't know what they want. They don't know what others want or expect, and they don't know how to ask. They're afraid because things will blow up again. Remember, most of these conflicts, they've been around for a while, long before we ever showed up as advisors. They're afraid also that everyone will have to account for their role in the conflict. I mean, it's easier for me to point the finger at someone else and say, they're the problem. The harder part is looking at yourself in the mirror and asking, what role did I play? Next, because no one's talking about it, there's a lot of confusion. No one is sure what mom and dad are really thinking when it comes to selling the business, because mom and dad are wrestling with questions like, will we have enough money after sale to be okay? How do we keep the family together if we have to choose one child over another to run the business? Or what if we decide to sell the business altogether? And of course, the kids aren't sure what's expected of them when it comes to taking over the business, or maybe the expectations of their inheritance. And all this fear and confusion adds to the pain that's already there. And if you've experienced pain from trying to talk about it before, why would you risk talking about it again? Why would you want to be hurt again? And of course, the last thing, the big piece that's wrapped in all of this, especially for owners, is the identity piece. Now, given our short time together, this is the one I kind of want to focus in and dig in just a little bit. Now, the next few slides, here's a little bit of a warning, might seem a little abstract, and you kind of might be wondering what the relevance is. But remember what Chris Snyder at the beginning of our SEPA training talks about, is that understanding and appreciating the owner's identity, how it's tied to the business, and that connection is something we can't underestimate or ignore. That is, when we're talking about identity, that this isn't a rational conversation, it's a deeply emotional one. And again, going back to Chris Snyder and Walking to Destiny in chapter 3 of Every Hero Has a Flaw, Chris talks about some of those identity related issues. There's worry about getting old, there's concern about what you're going to do next. And let's be honest, some of this identity talk sometimes gets a bad rap because it's often confused with identity politics. But that's not what we're here to talk about, because each one of us has an identity. And while it's easy to find really complicated definitions for identity, this is the one I like the most. The story you tell yourself about yourself. And in thinking of terms of a story, a great way to begin a conversation with either a new client is by simply saying, tell me your story, or asking, how did all this begin? Again, I go back to Chris in our SEPA training. What was on your mind the day you opened the doors or started your business? I always think that's a really great way to start a conversation with a business owner. It's also a great way to begin with an existing client who's considering an exit. Yeah, you may know how the business began, but always is a great way to set the stage. You will gain new information, some new insight into what they're thinking, including those obstacles like the family conflict that could very well later on interfere with your work. Now, when you think about identity, there's the 5 pillars, and this comes from Negotiating the Non-Negotiable, How to Resolve Your Most Emotionally Charged Conflicts. It's a book by Daniel Shapiro. And Shapiro writes that identity comes from our beliefs, how we see the world, our rituals, the practices that reinforce our beliefs, our allegiances, who are we loyal to, what groups do we belong to, like our family, like our business, values, what's important to us, and our experiences, what's important from history. But identity isn't just about the individual, okay, that individual piece. It's also about who you're connected to, and that's kind of the double whammy of family business. Because consider the extra emotional weight of having the family's name on the door or the billboard by the highway that everyone sees. So when it comes to identity and exit planning, and this is again kind of bringing this abstract to make it more real, okay? These are just some of the questions that owners struggle with. Now, they may not say it in these exact words. They may not even be aware that this is what they're wrestling with, but these are the questions they're asking. Who am I? What do I do now? What's my place? What's my purpose? Our job as advisors is to be aware that we're asking and we're helping not only the business owner, but the family to change the fundamental ways in how they see themselves in the world and how they relate to one another. But that change, for all the benefits, like a nice big financial reward, peace of mind, a comfortable retirement, all those things that we say are possible, they can feel threatening. And even though we may present what seems completely rational and meet all the points of what they say, there will still be resistance. And that resistance can lead to conflict within the family business. So let's talk about what you can do as an advisor. Now in the breakout session, I will go deeply into some of the things about how you can manage yourself in this, but that's kind of a clue in what you can expect at the breakout session in San Antonio. But what I kind of want to dive into to help you in this first strategy, or I'm sorry, in the second strategy you can take away, is to define the problem. There's confusion within the owner about what he or she wants to do. Maybe they're not really quite sure. And since the owner is confused, that leaves you scratching your head trying to figure out how to help the owner get clear on the course of action. So this strategy here, the miracle question, comes from solution-focused therapy. And when you hear therapy, you probably think about lying on the couch, talking about your dreams, your feelings, or your childhood. But that's just one approach to therapy. Solution-focused therapy is short-term, and as the name suggests, centers on really defining and solving the problem. And so the miracle question is an excellent approach when your client isn't sure what the real problem might be or how to attack it. So first of all, you want to get their permission first. Ask them if they're open to trying something a little bit different, because it may strike them as off the wall. You can even tell them if it helps you heard it in a webinar or workshop. And so you deliver the script. So suppose tonight while you slept, a miracle occurred. When you awake tomorrow, what would be some of the things you would notice that would tell you life had suddenly gotten better? And then give them time to answer. And this is going to be the hardest part for you, and it will feel like an eternity, even though maybe it's a couple of minutes. And as they share their answer, you may need to ask some questions to clarify. What will you first notice? What will you do differently? What will other people notice? Tell me more. And then you can continue the questioning process with what else? What's it good for when exploring options? What would they say? What don't you know? Why are they allowed to do that? All with the hope of helping to kind of clear up that confusion and make things a little bit more certain for the business owner. Now, the third strategy we'll go into at the conference is the force field analysis. It's a weighing of the pros and cons. But strategy number 4 is one that I really like to use, especially when there's a disagreement between siblings. And it's about switching sides. And really, this is about getting the other person to step into the other's shoes to find out what do they most care about, what concerns are you particularly sensitive, and of course, whatever the concern is important, but please explain what's the other thing that you do that you care about. And so these are questions that you can work with your client to help them. So what the case is, excuse me, I didn't explain this very well, but to step back and to switch places, to take the opposing view and to work through the questions. And this last piece, the one that says, of course, is particularly important because the underlying portion is a way to show you appreciate a particular concern the other shares. So for example, when two brothers are arguing over who should lead the company, one brother could say, of course being the boss is important to you, but please explain what other things do you care about? Now, for this to work, okay, you have to be sincere, the other person has to be sincere, your client has to be sincere. They really have to want to try and find a solution. It's also a way to truly understand the point of another person. It's to find merit or value in the other's view, and it's to communicate understanding. Because really underlying all of this, when we think about conflict, what people really want is they want to be heard. They want to feel like they've been heard and they've been validated. And so this strategy here on switching sides is a really great way to encourage that. And then the last thing, the last strategy is how to diffuse tension, And I'll go into this in more detail at the conference, but let's say you don't have a choice. Let's say you have to have the family together to either sign some documents or to really work through a solution. And all of a sudden, everything blows up. Well, one of the things I like to ask when this starts kind of going off the rails is to simply ask everyone, is this helpful? Is arguing back and forth about this, is this helpful? Are you really trying to achieve what you want to achieve here? And so that's a way to kind of reset the conversation. And what I also do when this happens is, call it out. Acknowledge that it's difficult, all right? Reaffirm that everyone cares. One of the things you can offer is not to decide for now, is maybe to delay for a while for everybody to kind of collect their thoughts so they don't feel like they're backed into a corner. And if you have to, call a timeout so everybody can collect themselves, maybe take a walk, get a glass of water, but agree to come back together. So that is, as I said, a lot of information in a short amount of time, but that kind of gives you the highlights of what I'll be talking about in the breakout session in San Antonio. So Joe, I'm going to turn it back over to you in case there were any questions while we were talking or while I was talking today.
Thank you, Kyle. That was a very informative webinar for our days. It looks like there is no questions at the moment, but I will give the attendees a few minutes here if they wanted to type in any questions that they didn't get to type in.
Okay.
But while we wait, I just have a question for you. What would you do if a family member doesn't want to participate in the whole process?
Yeah, that's happened to me a couple of times where a family member absolutely refuses. And a lot of times that's around something that's been very, very painful that's happened to where they feel like they haven't been included or they've been, they're not part of the business or that their voice doesn't count. So what I will do is I will ask for an introduction. I will then, ask for an introduction from the parent to the individual who doesn't want to be there, who refuses to participate. I would encourage them to be there. I would say all you have to do is show up and listen. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to chime in, but it would really like for you to be there and just to listen to what's being discussed. So at least you're there. Because when I hear these kind of things about family members not wanting to participate or kind of checking out, or maybe being really reactive to what's going on, I remind everybody is that we all want to matter. And if we can't matter in a positive way, we'll matter in a negative way. But either way, we have to matter. And so inviting a family member in just to simply listen without the pressure of participating is at least a way to show them that they matter. And so that's one option to do.
Awesome. Thanks for that answer, Kyle. I had one question regarding your breakout session at the summit.
Yes.
Someone was asking how long it's going to be because it's a lot of material to go over.
Yeah, it is a lot of material. So
Yeah.
I believe it's about 50 minutes. And at the summit, there will also have a handout that goes into more of the details of what I'll be sharing. But I think it's about 50 minutes, I believe.
Okay, great. Well, that basically wraps it up for us here.
Great.
Thank you so much, Kyle. And again, the summit will take place in San Antonio in September on the 23rd through the 25th. And for more information, you can go to exitplanningsummit.com or give us a call here at EPI. Hope everyone has a great rest of their week. Kyle, thanks again, and I hope to talk to you very soon.
Great. Thanks, Joe, and thanks everyone for dialing in today.